For my next Generation 5 prediction, I'm gonna be talking about the war between the old and reformed changelings. Now, this may be an over-exaggerating ideal if changelings do return, not to mention two different types of changelings, the old and reformed ones, but if you really look back at Generation 4 of how they execute the changelings, of how they live and how they war, I honestly think that they're probably going to do some kind of interesting concepts when it comes to the next generation. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that they might be able to come up with original creature ideals for the next generation, but as far as I'm concerned, I really think that they should probably have the ideal on just trying to have the changelings return in the next generation in some way. Why? Well, for one, not only were they unique when they first made their appearance at the end of Season 2, but also of how they're completely way more different when it comes to the old changelings and the new changelings. I honestly think that the old changelings, despite them going through a lot of serious situations of the history against the Equestria people and citizens, I honestly think that they should probably be in the next generation in order to actually have a different kind of development when it comes to their relationship with others or the enemies that they have in the land of Equestria. Seriously. This is why I actually think of what they should do for Generation 5 involving the changelings. They should probably have two different types of changelings return, just like in the 4th generation. However, the difference is, I want these types of changelings to face off the new changelings. We never had that kind of stuff in the 4th generation, since that all the other changelings minus Chrysalis were reformed, and we didn't actually get to see two different types of changelings face off each other. Now, you're probably thinking, how would the war be like? Well, I understand this may be taking some kind of ideals from Generation 4, but I honestly think that they should probably do most of the same concept of having whoever has changeling, if changeling has the love, they turn to good, and while the changeling steals love, they still turn to bad. But I honestly think that they should probably separate the two types of changelings on who's right and who's wrong. Yeah, it may be predictable, but I honestly think that for how big Equestria might be, if it's a possibility, I really think that they should probably have two different types of changelings really far away from each other in order to prevent a war that they usually do when it comes to the differences. For me now, if some people are thinking I'm a little exaggerating over this, let me remind you that Generation 4 started off by introducing us with the changelings and how different they are compared to the citizens of either Crystal Empire, Canterlot, and Ponyville, and any other place that these characters go to. And as far as I'm concerned, I honestly think that they should probably get a different direction if they do return in Generation 5. Because I honestly think that if the changelings can either go to a different side on a good or a bad side of a bad society of changelings, it will probably lead to a really interesting war between the changelings. I know full well that there's obviously going to be wars in the next generation because Hasbro is just trying to actually make Generation 5 more for adults, more than what Generation 4 did. And the reason why I think of this is because of what we've seen in Generation 4 involving the main characters facing off the changelings in the Season 2 finale, and we didn't get to see them again until Season 6. I really think that they can easily have some kind of interesting development if the direction of Season 4 was a lot more different than we ended up getting. Not saying that if the reformed changelings would never happen, but at the same time, I honestly think that they might be able to do something a lot more interesting involving what the changelings do and what the good changelings do otherwise. this video isn't really much I can do regarding to my analysis on the Changelings, but for what I've seen from Generation 4, I would think that Generation 5 would mostly have returning creatures from the past generation. I know full well that other than my video regarding on the sea hippogriffs returning some of the way, and completely mentioning that there's not going to be other creatures returning, but if they're going to have creatures returning, I would think that Generation 5 should have Changelings return in order to have some kind of interesting conflict of what to expect from Generation 5. Of how they can easily live in society differently or good. Yes, I will admit, it's mostly the same with Generation 4, but they can still do changes along the way in order to make this a lot more unique and different compared to the previous generation. For me personally, I really wish that there was some other way to actually make the Changelings have some kind of a difference compared to what they used to in the 4th generation of My Little Pony. For how they live in Generation 4, honestly works out for the originality in Generation 4. But as for Generation 5, it may be a bit similar, but as far as I'm concerned, if they do return, I can guarantee you that Hasbro is probably going to surprise us for what they can do involving these creatures in order to actually have them have some kind of a purpose in them. Believe me when I say this is that I know for an extent that the Changelings are going to have a different direction if they do return no matter what. Same goes to every other creature. And with the information that the original cast of My Little Pony won't return and we're going to be introducing to new characters, I really think that is saying a lot regarding to different personalities and different societies of what Generation 5 has to offer compared to Generation 4. So, as much as this video isn't as long as I want it to be, I just wanted to point out that I honestly think that Generation 5 should have the Changelings return, but have them in a really different setting while also having a war against each other. We haven't had that in Generation 4, mainly the fact that there was not enough Changelings, obviously, and the fact that every single Changeling, minus Chrysalis, was reformed. But at the same time, if Equestria in Generation 5 is going to be way more bigger than Generation 4, they should probably put a lot more effort to have more creatures being around in Generation 5 than more than Generation 4. Yes, I am aware that Generation 4 has a huge population of characters, but for what they're going to do with Generation 5 of how serious and more non-kid friendly, okay, it is going to be kid friendly, but not completely like it was in Generation 4, there's probably going to be a lot more than what we usually expect from Generation 4. But then again, that's really debatable on what we're going to see happens. So, there's really nothing else I can say other than the fact that I actually want the Changelings to return, just like the Hippogriffs or Sea Ponies. So, comment down below on what you actually think. This video may be not as long as the other Generation 5 predictions, but at the same time, I don't have to make longer videos. It could get really a lot more stressful. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.